Job 1:20 through 22. Job blesses God in his affliction. Then Job arose and rent his robe and shaved his head and fell upon the ground and worshipped. And he said, Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin or charge God with wrong. Overview: the fathers agree in saying that Job preserves in his affliction and inevitable despair an undefeatable spirit of gratitude toward God. Chrysostom, Ephraim, Hesychus. From this we learn that affliction must not become for us a cause of temptation. Gregory. Nakedness is both gift and benevolence. Job's words concerning this may best be understood of evil and sin, and not simply of possessions. Our only true possession is godliness, which cannot be taken away even by death. Clement. We should accept what God ordains for us, for he always ordains what is good. Basil. Like a good servant, Job counted the will of the Lord his greatest possession. Augustine. 1:20 through 21. Job worships God. A sign of victory. Chrysostom. Do not believe, dear brothers, that Job's gesture indicates a defeat. It is above all a sign of victory. Indeed, if he had done nothing, he would have appeared to be insensitive. Job actually demonstrates himself to be altogether wise, fatherly, and pious. What damage did he suffer? He grieves not only for the loss of his children and his cattle, but also for the way they died. Who would have not been shattered by such events? Which man of steel would have not been affected? Paul himself often expressed his tearful reaction to events. What are you doing weeping and breaking my heart? We should admire Paul's response. In the same way, Job also deserves to be admired because, in spite of the emotion that pushed him to make that moving gesture, he does not speak a single inappropriate word. The purity of Job. Ephraim the Syrian. The text means that Job was not covered with crimes and evil deeds and would have returned naked, that is, pure and innocent, to his mother's womb. He was so firm in his holy frankness that you may easily imagine he had never turned aside from righteousness, nor would have ever passed from virtue to vice in the future. Godliness is our only true possession. Clement of Alexandria. Job's words may be more elegantly understood of evil and sin in this way. Naked was I formed from the earth at the beginning, as if from a mother's womb. Naked to the earth shall I also depart, naked not of possessions, for that would be a trivial and common thing, rather naked of evil and sin, and of the unsightly shape which follows those who have led bad lives. Obviously, all of us human beings are born naked and again are buried naked, swathed only in grave clothes. For God has provided for us another life and made the present life the way for the course which leads to it. He appoints the supplies derived from what we possess merely as provisions for the way, and when we come to the end of this way, the wealth consisting of the things which we possessed journeys no farther with us. For not a single thing that we possess is properly our own. We are properly owners of only one possession, that is godliness. Death will not rob us of this when it overtakes us. It will, however, throw out everything else, although it will do so against our will. For it is for the support of life that we all have received what we possess, and after enjoying merely the use of it, each one departs, obtaining from life what amounts to a brief memento. For this is the end of all prosperity. This is the conclusion of the good things of this life. It is only right, then, that the infant, upon opening its eyes after issuing from the womb, immediately begins with crying, not with laughter, for it weeps as if bewailing life, at whose hands from the outset it tastes of deadly gifts. For immediately on being born, its hands and feet are swaddled and swathed in bonds. It begins nursing, O introduction to life, precursor to death. The child has but entered on life, and immediately there is put upon it the clothing of the dead. For nature reminds those that are born of their end. This is also why the child, on being born, wails as if crying plaintively to its mother. Why, O mother, did you bring me out into this life in which prolongation of life is progress to death? Why have you brought me into this troubled world in which, on being born, swaddled bands are my first experience? Why have you delivered me to such a life as this, in which both a pitiable youth wastes away before old age, and old age is shunned as under the doom of death? Dreadful, O mother, is the course of life, which has death as the goal of the runner. Bitter is the road of life we travel, with the grave as the wayfarer's inn. Perilous the sea of life we sail, for it has Hades as a pirate to attack us. Humankind alone is born in all aspects naked, without a weapon or clothing born with it. This does not mean you are inferior to the other animals, but the nakedness and the fact you bring nothing with you are designed to produce thought. That thought, in turn, may bring out dexterity, expel sloth, introduce the arts for the supply of our needs, and beget a variety of ingenuity, for naked human beings are full of contrivances, being pricked on by their necessity as by a goad, to figure out how to escape rains, how to elude cold, how to fence off blows, how to till the earth, how to terrify wild beasts, how to subdue the more powerful of them. Wetted with rain, they conceive of a roof. Having suffered from cold, they invent clothing. Being struck, they constructed a breastplate, their hands bleeding with the thorns in tilling the ground. They avail themselves of the help of tools, in their naked state liable to become a prey to wild beasts. They discovered from their fear an art which frightened the very thing that frightened them. Nakedness begat one accomplishment after another, so that even their nakedness was a gift and benevolence. Accordingly, Job, also being made naked of wealth, possessions, of the blessing of children, of a numerous offspring, and having lost everything in a short time, uttered this grateful explanation: Naked came I out of the womb, naked also I shall depart thither, to God, and to that blessed lot and rest. What God ordains is always good, Basil the Great. Be perfectly assured of this, that though the reasons for what is ordained by God are beyond us, yet always what is arranged for us by Him who is wise and who loves us is to be accepted, be it ever so grievous to endure. He Himself knows how He is appointing what is best for each, and why the terms of life that He fixes for us are unequal. There exists some reason incomprehensible to us why some are sooner carried far away from us, and some are left a longer while behind to bear the burdens of this painful life. So we should always adore His loving kindness and not express discontent, remembering those great and famous words of the great athlete Job, when he had seen 10 children at one table in one short moment crushed to death. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. As the Lord thought good, so it came to pass. Let us adopt those marvelous words. At the hands of the righteous judge, those who demonstrate similar good deeds shall receive a similar reward. We have not lost the boy. We have restored him to the lender. His life is not destroyed. It is changed for the better. He whom we love is not hidden in the ground. He is received into heaven. Let us wait a little while, and we shall be once more with him. The time of our separation is not long, for in this life we are all like travelers on a journey, hurrying on to the same shelter. While one has reached his rest, another arrives, another hurries on, but one and the same end awaits them all. He has outstripped us on the way, but we shall all travel the same road, and the same hostel awaits us all. What have you lost, Augustine? Those who lost all their worldly possessions in the sack of Rome, if they owned their possessions as they had been taught by the apostle, who himself was poor without, but rich within, that is to say, if they used the world as though not using it, they could say in the words of Job, heavily tried but not overcome, naked I came out of my mother's womb, and naked shall I return. The Lord gave and the Lord has taken away. As it pleased the Lord, so it has happened. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Like a good servant, Job counted the will of his Lord his greatest possession, and through obedience to that will his soul was enriched. It didn't grieve him while he was still alive to lose those goods which he was shortly going to have to leave at his death. But as to those feebler spirits who, though they cannot be said to prefer earthly possessions to Christ, still hang on to them with a somewhat moderate attachment to them, they have discovered by the pain of losing these things how much they were sinning in loving them. For their grief is of their own making. In the words of the apostle quoted above, they have pierced themselves through with many sorrows. For it was well that they who had so long despised these verbal admonitions should receive the teaching of experience. For when the apostle says, "They that will be rich fall into temptation," and so on, what he blames in riches is not the possession of them, but the desire for them. For elsewhere he says, "Charge those who are rich in this world not to be high-minded or trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God, who gives us richly all things to enjoy, that they do good, that they be rich in good works, ready to distribute, willing to communicate, laying up in store for themselves a good foundation against the time to come, that they may lay hold of eternal life." They who were making such a use of their property have been consoled for light losses by great gains, and have had more pleasure in those possessions which they have securely laid past by freely giving them away, than grief in which those they entirely lost by an anxious and selfish hoarding of them. For nothing could perish on earth except what they would be ashamed to carry away from the earth. Our Lord's injunction runs, "Do not lay up treasures for yourselves on earth, where moth and rust corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal, but lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust corrupt, and where thieves do not break through or steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also." And they who have listened to this injunction have proved in the time of tribulation how well they were advised in not despising this most trustworthy teacher and most faithful and mighty guardian of their treasure. For if many were glad that their treasure was stored in places which the enemy chanced not to light upon, how much better founded was the joy of those who, by the counsel of their God, have fled with their treasure to a citadel which no enemy can possibly reach. 122. Job did not sin, no sin in word or thought. ACCS of Jerusalem. Job did not sin before God. That is, he was pure from sins committed with his tongue or in his thoughts, and he praised God by means of words in accordance with his thoughts. Actually, he did not charge God with insanity. That is, Job does not accuse the will of God or scorn the economy of the Creator, and he does not perceive insanity in the events that had occurred. He did not believe that the righteous are abandoned into the hands of sinners. Grief must not lead to temptation. Gregory the Great. The mind that grieves over testing must be wary and diligent, lest the temptation prompt it from within to utter words that are forbidden, or to complain about being tested. It should be vigilant that the fire that tests it like gold not turn everything into mere chaff by the excesses of a lawless tongue.